Welcome to everybody to the inaugural edition of the Mediators webcast, the official webcast of the Association of Missouri Mediators. I'm your host, Jason Rugo, and we welcome you to this inaugural edition. We're very excited about this. It's taken a long time to get this done. I've had to learn how to edit all this stuff in the process, and bear with me. There'll be some primitive parts of today, but I'm very proud of it, and it's going to get better and better with each passing day. This is going to be a regular feature of the Association of Missouri Mediators. I will be your regular host, but we will have special hosts and special guests at various times. Today, my special guest is the president of the Association of Missouri Mediators, J. Matthew Miller, Matt Miller as we know him. A lot of fun talking to Matt. He has had some very interesting experiences in his life. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed doing it.
Hi, Matt. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the first inaugural edition of the AMM podcast, Mediators.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for having me.
And I'm excited to start this with the president of the AMM, and you came right after me. So we have lots to talk about because you've had an exciting 2 years.
Indeed, it's been a great couple of years, and I learned from a good president that preceded me in your presidency. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that. I hope you've enjoyed it at least.
I have enjoyed it. I think it's been a great adventure. I've made a lot of friends and acquaintances through AMM. I've learned a lot of things. We've put on some good programs and have shared ideas. I think I'm excited, maybe most of all, about the involvement of our members that we have continued to develop since your presidency. And people have been really taking things into their own hands as far as building up AMM's exposure in the community, our work with schools, with community mediation, and those type of things. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's been really exciting to me to watch happen in the past year, almost 2 years now. I guess in my presidency, I'm a lawyer, so I came from the legal side of mediation, and I tended to focus on that. Although I always wanted to encourage everyone else in mediation to speak up and push their cause. And in the last 2 years, you're right. It seems like various people like Latricia Clark working with Jennings High School on some nice programs, and you have some great things that you've done. The community meeting in Springfield and the huge community meeting up here in St. Louis that just took place. Why don't you talk to us about that and what you were thinking about when you thought of these community local meetings?
That was kind of one of the platforms coming into the presidency, was that I wanted to develop these regional meetings so that people could, we came out of COVID, and really I began my board membership at AMM in the midst of COVID or around that time. And so I really, even when I became president, I didn't really know personally very much of our membership. I knew them through our board meetings and things like that. But my goal was to really make some connections with people and be able to engage directly with people rather than simply online. So we've developed, and I think have had success in our development of these regional meetings. And the idea is that they can look however they should look based on the who's organizing them and who's attending. So mine, for instance, that I had back in, I think it was February, I believe, here in Springfield, I presented a CLE. We had some refreshments, and it went very well. But it was in St. Louis. It was held at Washington University, and we had a great turnout. We joined together in sponsoring and presenting the continuing education courses with other organizations, including WashU and some others. So
USANM too.
yes, and so it was a much larger presentation and production, which was great for that environment. The others, Amy Koopman, and Laurel Stevenson put on a presentation in Kansas City that was based on reflective practice groups, and so it was their own thing. It was what was interesting to them and what their need was for Kansas City at that time.
Did you hear any reports how that reflective practice thing went? That was just recently, and I didn't have a chance to talk to anyone to see how it went.
I haven't really heard too much about it, actually. I read about it in the newsletter. Looked like they had a decent turnout. I'm sure it went well.
That
It
was
wasn't
more in the
really-
nature of a retreat, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. So it was um, more of a sustained experience, and not necessarily just educational. It was really um, involved each of the people who went, and they had an opportunity to build their own understanding of their practices and reflect on that.
The
Yes.
St. Louis thing I really loved, especially because, for my 2 years, I was busy trying to develop some synergies. I thought we had too many organizations all each doing their own thing. I still think that, but I thought that we could maybe take the lead since we're the state organization that covers mediation and mediation only to try and get some synergies going. So I loved seeing Karen Tokar's, Professor Tokar's come on our board, and then her CLE at WashU Law, we got to sponsor the reception for, and USANM was there, of course. They're always sponsoring things with WashU. So I loved that synergy. I'd love to see us do more of that in the future.
Yeah, I think it's right. We're called the Association of Missouri Mediators, and my practice is a pretty traditional mediation practice. I'm an attorney. People meet at my office. I'll have people attend mediation online, but I rarely facilitate purely online mediations. So it's pretty traditional mediation practice. But what's been interesting to me over the last couple of years is seeing how Missouri mediators engage their mediation practices in very different ways, and how we build our association's influence in the diversity of practice, civil mediation, people who have different areas of practice, very different areas of practice, but we are all sharing this common experience of being mediators.
Yes, that's well said. Because the type of, I don't know, do you do family or do you do civil and family or?
I do mostly family law. Every once in a
Okay.
while, I'll have a civil case. I'll have some business cases every once in a while, but mostly family law is what I do as far as
Right.
mediation.
And I think family mediation is an animal unto itself, as is perhaps personal injury mediation. Those things tend to be, I think, rather formulaic in how they go. The civil side of business commercial litigation, like what I'm in, is there's very little that's similar case to case, even areas of law. So it's sort of, you're making it up as you go along and using all your tools.
Right.
So if people want to reach you for mediation, where would they do that?
Well, they're certainly welcome to go on my website, which is jmmillerlaw.com. I receive a number of referrals from the court or courts directly. Many of the courts, at least in my area, Southwest Missouri, have rules that require the parties to go to mediation. So the judge might refer a mediation to me, or the attorneys might ask for me to be appointed. I get referrals certainly directly from other attorneys. That's probably one of my main sources of business. But I do get also community people from the community just calling because maybe someone has recommended me as a mediator to them, and we try to set it up just between individuals, and with me mediating, and that's good as well. And usually those people are desiring some sort of resolution if they just contact me directly from the community. So that's good to work with them as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They must really want to settle if
Right. Usually, although sometimes that's one-sided, but usually.
right, right. And so you've been mediating for how many years?
I have had my mediation certificate, which I have obtained. I obtained it from University of Missouri
Mhm.
School of Law. I think that was in 2010. I went up and did the program there, and but I didn't really do much mediation for many years. About 2018 or so, about 6 years ago, I decided that I wanted to make mediation a significant part of my practice. So I contacted the Greene County Court, which has a rule that requires mediation for the litigants, and put my name on the list. And then I just started building from there, and I think I've become one of the mediators who handles quite a few cases here in Greene County, and it's just built from that point, and really has grown quite a bit. It's now, I would say, probably 25 to 30% of my practice, with the other being just litigation. um,
Oh, okay.
i I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do coming out of law school, and I just took a wide variety of classes. I was signed up for railroad law, and then no, they wouldn't get enough people to fill the class. I don't know why I was interested in it, but I always wanted to do that, and it never quite worked out. So I just took general courses and didn't really have too much um, dispute resolution in my law school career. But really became intrigued by mediation during the course of my practice, when I, as a litigator, would go into mediation with my clients. And I learned from a great mediator who is a past president of the Association of Missouri Mediators, Lisa Blumenstock,
Oh, okay.
has been probably my primary mentor in learning how to mediate cases. And when I say that, usually because she was mediating my cases that I had brought to her, or that the court had assigned to her. And
And
I
did she
really
urge
shaped.
you? She urged you to get involved?
Yeah, she did actually. I talked a little bit with her about it, and she said, you could do this. This is something that you might have the talent to be able to really do well. And so I have honestly kind of shaped the way that I mediate, largely based on how she mediated. Obviously, we all have our own styles and particular ways of doing things, but when people come, and I think that's been a source of success for me, is because Lisa's not fully retired, but somewhat
Right.
retired, I would say. And so when people come to me, they're getting a lot of the same experience they had with her for so many years. And that's a source of confidence, I think, for them in their when they engage in litigation with me, or in mediation with me as a mediator.
Isn't that cool? I'm smiling because I had pretty much the same experience. I did a lot of mediating with Dick Shear here in St. Louis, God rest his soul. And
Okay.
he said, Jason, you can do this. You'd be good at it. And so I said, why not? And started that journey with him, with his Association of Attorney Mediators. And you're right. It helps to have that kind of a mentor saying, hey, you can do this. And then sort of look out for you and make sure you're doing okay. And he did all those things until he passed away in an untimely manner. So it's interesting that we have sort of the same experience, except Lisa is going strong. Where is she now? Is she on Table Rock Lake or?
No, she's still here in Springfield,
Oh, okay. I
and
thought
she
she'd built
takes.
something on the lake.
Well, she might live down there. I don't know the answer to
Yeah,
that, uh,
right.
but she probably, I think, mediates a few cases a month, something like that at this point. I Every once in a while I'll have one with her, so she's still going.
And do you mediate every week, would you say?
I'd say I have probably 1 or 2 mediations a week on
Hmm.
average.
And they
Um,
last on average how long?
I scheduled them for 3 hours, so I like to start early at 8:30 in the morning and get started and be done before lunchtime. If we're doing a morning session, I like to start at 1:30 in the afternoon and go till 4:30. And that leaves us a little time extra. If we need to go over, we could go till noon in the morning. We can go until 5 in the afternoon.
And the
And
local rules of, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, normally the local rules require 2 hours,
2 hours. Okay.
and so I let people go if they want to go after that period of time. But I have quite a few mediations that will do more than one session. Of course, we'll reschedule and uh, they have an opportunity, especially in family law. A lot of times we're working with assets that need further discovery or they need to investigate further so that we can really have the information that we need to litigate or to mediate rather. And so my experience is, especially in larger asset cases, it might take a session or two just to lay the groundwork for resolution, get the facts between our sessions, and then be prepared 2 or 3 sessions in to actually frame possible resolutions.
Now, this is all part of the new wave of mandatory mediations in the family law arena. Has that been successful?
I think it has. I certainly, when I'm litigating cases, I would almost never tell my client, don't, let's try to avoid mediation or let's not go to mediation. Of course, being a mediator, I'm inclined to it, but I really think it is useful for people to go, even, and maybe especially when uh, the attorneys go to the judge and say, Judge, this case shouldn't be mediated. There's no chance of settlement. That's kind of when, in my experience, an order for mediation is useful because a lot of those times uh, the the parties and their attorneys just haven't even considered the possibility of resolution. And once they get in an office with a mediator, they might reconsider their positions, start to see things a little bit differently, and it becomes very useful, especially in those cases.
Oh, you went to Malta at some point in the last few years, did you not?
I did, yes. That was back in 2021, I believe. It was coming out of COVID. Still had to wear a mask at that point, especially in Malta, Italy. They were pretty strict on it at that point. But yes, I had the opportunity to visit Malta, and I was able to meet with some mediators there, the
Yes, tell
main
us about that.
mediation center. It was a great experience. I have made a practice over the last, I would say, 8 or 10 years. Even before I got serious about mediation, I've enjoyed going to foreign countries and trying to meet attorneys, judges, and mediators, and learn from foreign legal systems that may have a different way of doing things. Some similarities, of course, throughout the world in terms of mediation, but I made it part of my travel to Malta a few years ago and had a good experience. Met with the head of the court systems mediation program, and so welcoming, gave me a really interesting insight into the past. It's very quite a history at Malta, with many different cultures of influence over the years. So it was really a good experience. Met with them in their office and really got some interesting insights.
Was this an organization engaged in mediation or engaged in teaching mediation?
Both, primarily engaged in mediation and overseeing the courts program of compulsory mediation for civil litigation.
So they had
So
compulsory litigation of all disputes, and
yeah, and so the fellow that I met with, the head of the program, would develop the guidelines and standards for the court system, but he would also do mediation as well. So he was very welcoming, and it was a great experience.
what other countries have you had a chance to visit with mediators or people connected to mediation?
The country that I had the most experience with in terms of the law, the legal system, is India, and I've been to India numerous
Really?
times for different reasons.
Wow.
But the last few times that I've been there, I have had an opportunity to engage with the courts, and I went to the courts in Delhi and was able to meet with one of the head of the mediators, uh, one of the head mediators in one of the particular district courts in Delhi, and was able to go and attend what's called Lok Adalat mediation. It's sort of a blend between mediation and arbitration. And they have so many cases there, and they're so backed up that it's compulsory, ordered by the court, but people are very motivated to settle their cases because of the backup in terms of the caseload in the courts there. A panel
Okay.
of, say, an attorney, a judge, maybe an expert in the area that they are mediating or arbitrating.
Wow.
And so they might have a insurance person there. They might insurance agent. They might have a doctor there to review the medical records. And when the case is called, uh, the uh, the panel will review the facts. The attorneys will come in. The attorneys will have an opportunity to make a brief statement, and the panel will, based on that, make kind of a tentative recommendation about possible settlement if they haven't already engaged in some settlement negotiations. And then the attorneys that represent the parties will have an opportunity to uh, consider the recommendation and decide whether that's a good opportunity, a good point to begin negotiation. They'll go and have some dialogue while another case is called, and ultimately they were settling cases. They were resolving cases.
Wow.
And the reason is, as you can understand, what I like to say, one of my mantras in mediation is the more information that we have available to us, the better opportunity we have to settle a case.
Isn't that the
So
truth?
they come in maybe looking at 6 or 8 years of waiting for a case to be heard in the courts. They have their own medical information. The insurance company perhaps has whatever information has been provided by the plaintiff. They come in, they get an evaluation from judges, attorneys, experts that may not have 100% understanding of the case, but they have a sense of the case, and they can know whether their idea for resolution is completely unreasonable or whether it's a good deal that might be being offered, and they'll know that day. And the insurance company obviously is motivated to try to resolve the case if they can on reasonable terms, and cases are resolved.
Wow.
And so this is
Big dog
this has been
cases.
yeah, that's exactly right. So I would say this experience, I've been to a couple of these sessions over the years, and it has influenced me in terms of, there's sort of the classical mediation style of never offering an opinion, not trying to influence the parties, leaving decision making wholly to the parties. And I think there's value there. But at the same time, my experience in India has taught me that people value experience. They value a better understanding of the system that they're dealing with. So while I try to certainly avoid pressuring anyone into a settlement, I do often say something to the effect of, are there any questions you'd like to ask me as an attorney who has over 20 years of experience in litigation? And I try to be open to people's questions. And often they'll say something like, well, uh, how does it work? What is court like? What can I expect if I go to court? Is this something that I'm being unreasonable? And I won't say, yes, you're being unreasonable, but I might say something like, well, consider the facts from the other side's perspective. What are they saying next door that you might think about right now in evaluating your own proposal? So that's how my Indian experience has affected me, is in maybe giving me a little different perspective than that classical mediation style. And I think it's useful. I really do.
That's fascinating, and that may explain in large part the success of retired judges, for example, in becoming mediators in this modern world.
I think so. I think people bring. I couldn't mediate the way that I do if I didn't have the experiences that I've had. I start with this in my introductions. I say, the reason I became a mediator is because I'm a litigator, and I know the costs of litigation, whether it's financial, whether it's emotional, whether it's in terms of relationships. And I know the risks. I know that the speech I give is, I know that we have good judges in Southwest Missouri generally. And I know that the judges are going to give you a fair hearing, and they're going to listen to the evidence that you present and make a decision to the best they can. But I also know they're going to hear a few hours of evidence that's going to affect your entire life moving forward. And as a litigator, that scares me. That that causes me to lose sleep at night. So that's why I became a mediator, is because it's good if you can to reach agreements in offices rather than in the courtroom.
I think that's absolutely true. And I was thinking, as you were saying this, that it reminds me of a worry that I had years back, and I think it's still a valid worry, that the law schools, in particular SLU, but even and Mizzou, but even now WashU. I mean, they teach different groups of people. At Mizzou, I was part of a large group of practicing lawyers who had been practicing for a long time. We were learning mediation, like you just described. But a lot of kids are coming out of law school with mediation education and training, and I think are being sadly disabused of any notion that there is a world of mediation for them that will pay a lifestyle kind of salary for them, until you have some experience. Otherwise, it's hard to really sell yourself as a mediator. And the judges are able to get up there. Even I always heard from Dick Shear, they don't know how to mediate. And Dick was right in a lot of cases, but at the same time, they had maybe 40 years of experience seeing cases come and go. And that's not worthless. That's very useful. So I can see why people select judges, although for us non-judges, it's been a slightly embittering thing. But I definitely understand it. And it fits in with everything you just said.
Well, I think so, and I think it is two-sided. You have to have to do mediation and do it well. I think you have to have both the skills of communication as a mediator, which some people might have that coming right out of school.
Yep.
Some people might have that talent just without
Naturally, right?
much. Yeah, just based on a few observations, they might be able to reasonably function as a mediator. But then there's that other side of understanding the system, understanding the process, understanding the law. And really, in order to do mediation well, you need to blend those two things. And once you do, then you're prepared to, then people will, that's when mediations can really happen, because otherwise it's hard to make significant progress in challenging cases. I mean, some cases, of course, you can make your way through, but in hard cases, it requires both of those things: the communication ability and understanding of the mediation process, and the legal ability.
What other countries off the top of your head have you been to that are very, very different?
Oh, Ethiopia was a good adventure. I went to
Okay,
Ethiopia
yeah.
back in 2008.
Mhm.
And that was very interesting and different experience. I've been hoping to go back there as well, but things are kind of disordered politically there right now.
Right,
I'd like to go
right.
back there. Cameroon. Uh, I went to Cameroon simply because no one goes to Cameroon, and I wanted to have a unique experience, and really did. And people were very friendly there. Great culture, and uh,
So
great landscapes.
how did you become so adventurous in life? What were your parents adventurous people, or was this natural only to you?
No, I just probably reading books. I
Uh-huh.
think my imagination has always been stirred by foreign places and
Right.
uh, different cultures. I enjoy places that have very unique or very uh, well defined religious histories.
Uh-huh.
So those that's one of the reasons India is Jerusalem, Israel, Ethiopia, are all those kind of unique places.
And you are a minister, are you not?
I am a minister. Yes, I went to Duke Divinity School about 6 or 8 years ago. Started in 2015.
What school did you go to?
I went to Duke Divinity School,
Oh, Duke.
and
Okay.
for my master's degree, and was able to. One of the reasons it is a good school, but it was great for me because I could maintain my practice here and go there and spend some time and then come back, rather than have to leave my practice, which I considered at one point 10 years ago, leaving the practice for the ministry. But I really felt like I might be losing something that is important in my law practice, and then later in my mediation practice. That's something that is an important aspect, I think, of who I am, and I didn't want to give that up. So I was able to complete my master's degree by going back and forth and maintaining my practice over 2.5 years, and turned out great. I really enjoyed it, and I've just continued to build from there in
And you have
terms
a
of my
church?
ministry. Yeah, we have a small chapel here in Springfield,
Uh-huh.
and have been operating since 2020, October of 2020. So it's a church plant, and we started kind of in the middle of COVID, which is not a great time to do
No,
a church
really.
plant, but it's turned out well, and we have a good congregation and an interesting blend of people that I would have never anticipated
I know
what
from
our
talking to
church would look like.
John, I'm sorry. Talking to John Richardson up here, they've never recovered the live crowd size post-pandemic that they had pre-pandemic. I guess you didn't have a pre-pandemic experience. Is this largely in person, or is there also an online option for people who want to go to your church?
We just do in person.
Mhm.
It would be nice to have an online presence. It's just the I'm not really a technical person, and we don't really have anyone who's particularly given to technical work in our congregation. So we've just never really gotten that off the ground.
And so if somebody is interested in following up on this, what's the name of the church and where would they find you?
I appreciate that, Jason. Yes, it's called Christ Chapel, Madeline Terrace. Madeline Terrace is the road that we're on, the
Mhm.
street. So it's Christ Chapel, Madeline Terrace. And that's, you can find us on the web, on Facebook. Certainly, you could email me if you're interested, and I'd be more than happy to tell you all about it. I had an opportunity this past fall in October, November. I did a pilgrimage walk in France from Paris to Chartres Cathedral, but I also went to Clermont-Ferrand, which perhaps you know the film The Sorrow and the Pity from World War II. Well, it was made in the 1970s, but it's a documentary about the French resistance, and it was centered at Clermont-Ferrand, France. Great documentary if you get a chance to watch it.
And it's called again, remind me?
The Sorrow and the Pity.
Sorrow and the Pity. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah. If you ever see Annie Hall, Woody Allen's film Annie Hall, he goes back to the theater over and over to watch The Sorrow and the Pity. But it's a great movie on its own, so I would highly recommend it.
Matt, we've had a great conversation. I really appreciate it. You've had a fascinating life, and look how young you are. So, I mean, it's just, I can't wait to see what you do in the future. I'm really looking forward to it. Why don't you, one more time, let people know where they can look up your services as a lawyer?
Thank you very much. Yes, if you would, first of all, if you'd like to look at my webpage for my law practice, you can find me at jmmillerlaw.com. And then if you'd like to see our church website, it's christchapelmt for Madeline Terrace.com, christchapelmt.com. You could find us also on Facebook.
Okay, folks, I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I enjoyed doing it with Matt. Very interesting guy, very nice guy, as I'm sure you could tell. So that brings us to the end of our first episode of Mo Mediators, the official webcast of AMM. And before we leave, I am going to share with you one more time the information about our conference, October 28th and November 1 of this year, with the annual meeting of the Association of Missouri Mediators taking place Friday, November 1, where we elect officers. And you'll see registration open September 1, and you can track all this on momediators.org. Yes, that's how we got the name of this broadcast. Mo Mediators is our webcast. momediators.org is our website. So that's going to do it for now, folks. Sure appreciate you joining us. We'll see you next time. See you later. Bye.